Hello, readers. Welcome back to Reads with Room B. We are once again in the park in Southampton, and we are going to continue with Alice in Wonderland. So let's get to it. This chapter is called The Lobster's Quadrille. The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and drew back the back of one of his flappers across his eyes. He looked at Alice and tried to speak, but for a minute or two sobs choked his voice. "Same as if he had a bone in his throat," said the Gryphon, and set to work shaking him and punching him in the back. At last the Mock Turtle recovered his voice, and with tears running down his cheeks, he went on again. "You may not lived that much under the sea." "I haven't," said Alice. "And perhaps you were never introduced to a lobster." Alice began to say, I once tasted, but checked herself hastily and said, "No, never." So you can have no idea what a delightful thing the lobster quadrille is." "No, indeed," said Alice. "What sort of dance is it?" "Why," said the Gryphon, "you first form into a long line along the seashore." "Two lines," cried the Mock Turtle. "Seals, turtles, salmon, and so on. Then, once you've cleared all the jellyfish out of the way." "That generally takes some time," interrupted the Gryphon. "You dance twice, for the lobster as each partner," the Gryphon cried. "Of course," said the Mock Turtle. "Advance twice, set to partners. Change lobsters retire in the same order," continued the Gryphon. "Then you know," the Mock Turtle went on, "you throw the lobsters," shouted the Gryphon, with a bound into the air, as far out to sea as you can, "and swim after them," screamed the Gryphon. "Turn a somersault in the sea," cried the Mock Turtle, capering wildly about. Change lobsters again," yelled the Gryphon at the top of his voice. "I'm back to land again. And that's all the first figure," said the Mock Turtle, suddenly dropping his voice, and the two creatures who had been jumping about like mad things all this time sat down again very sadly. And quietly, and looked at Alice. "It must be a very pretty dance," said Alice timidly. "Would you like to see a little of it?" said the Mock Turtle. "Very much indeed." "Come, let's try the first figure," said the Mock Turtle to the Gryphon. "We can do it without lobsters, you know. Which shall sing?" "Oh, you sing," said the Gryphon. "I've forgotten the words." So they began slowly dancing round and round Alice, and every now and again treading on her toes when they passed too close, and wavering their fore paws in time to the mark, while the Mock Turtle sang this very slow and sadly. "Will you walk a little faster?" said a whittling to the snail. "There's a porpoise close behind us, and he's treading on my tail." How eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. Not bad. "They are waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance?" "Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you, won't you come and join the dance?" "Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you, won't you come and join the dance?" You really have no notion of how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with the lobsters out to sea." But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. He said he thanked the whittling very kindly, but he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not, could not, would not, could not join the dance. What matters it how far we go?" said his scaly friend replied. "There is another shore, you know, upon the other side. The further off from England, and the nearer it is to France. Then turn not the pale, beloved snail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you, won't you, come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you, won't you, come and join the dance. Thank you, it's a very interesting dance to watch, said Alice, feeling very glad that it was over at last. And I do like the curious song about whittling. Oh, as to the whittling, said the Mock Turtle. You've seen them, of course. Yes, said Alice. I've often seen them at. She checked herself hastily. I don't know where Din may be, said the Mock Turtle, but if you've seen them so often, of course you know what they're like. And there is Alice and the Griffin and the Mock Turtle trying the lobster quadrille. I believe so, said Alice, as she thoughtfully replied. They have their tails in their mouths, and they're all over crumbs. You're wrong about the crumbs, said the Mock Turtle. Crumbs would all wash off in the sea, but they have their tails in their mouths. Sorry, motorcycle. But they have their tails in their mouths, and the reason is, the Mock Turtle yawned and shut his eyes. Tell her about the reason and all that, he said to the Griffin. The reason is, said the Griffin, they would go with the lobsters to the dance, and so they got thrown out to sea. So they had to fall a long way. So they got their tails fast in their mouths, so they couldn't get them out again, and that's all. Thank you, said Alice. It's very interesting. I never knew so much about whittling before. I can tell you more than that if you like, said the Griffin. Do you know why it's called a whiteling? I never thought about it, said Alice. Why? It does the boots and the shoes, the Griffin replied very solemnly. Alice was puzzled. Does the boots and the shoes, she repeated in a wondering tone. Why, what are your shoes done with? Said the Griffin. I mean, what makes them so shiny? Alice looked down at them and considered them a little before giving her answer. They're done with blackening, I believe. Boots and shoes under the sea are done with whittling. Now you know. And what are they made of? Alice asked in a tone of great curiosity. Soles and eels, of course, the Griffin replied, rather impatiently. Any shrimp could have told you that. If I'd been the whiteling, said Alice, whose thoughts were still running on the song, I'd have said to the porpoise, keep back, please. We don't want you to join us. They were obliged to have him with them, said the Mock Turtle. No wise fish would go anywhere without a porpoise. Don't you mean a purpose? I mean what I say, the Mock Turtle replied in an offended tone. And the Griffin added, Come, let's hear some more of your adventures. I can tell you my adventures from the beginning of this morning, said Alice a little timidly, but it's no use going back to yesterday, because I was a different person then. Explain all that, said the Mock Turtle. No, first, the adventure, said the Griffin in an impatient tone. Explanations are dreadful, and take such an awful long time. So Alice began to tell them of her adventures, from the time when she first saw the white rabbit, when she was a little nervous about it just at first. The two creatures got close to her, one on either side, and opened their eyes and shut their mouths so very wide. But she gained courage as she went on, and her listeners were perfectly quiet till she got to the part about her repeating, Are you old, Father William, to the caterpillar, and the words all coming out different. And the Mock Turtle drew a long breath and said, That's very curious. It's all about as curious as it can be, said the Griffin. It all came out different, repeated the Mock Turtle, thoughtfully. I should like to hear her try and repeat something now. Tell her to begin. He looked at the Griffin as if he thought that it had some kind of authority over Alice. Stand up and repeat, 'Tis the voice of the sluggard, said the Griffin. How the creatures order one about and make one repeat lessons, thought Alice. I might just as well be at school as here, she thought. However, she got up and began to repeat, but her head was so full of the lobster quadrille, she hardly knew what she was saying, and the words came out very queer indeed. "'Tis the voice of the lobster," I heard him declare. "You have backed me to the brown. My sugar, I must my sugar, my hair." And that is the lobster reciting their As the duck with its eyelids, so with his nose, trims his belt and buttons, and turns out his toes. When the sands are all dry, he is gay as a lark, and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and the sharks are around, his voice has a timid and tremulous sound. "That's very different from what I used to say when I was a child," said the Gryphon. "Well, I've never heard it before," said the Mock Turtle, "but it sounds uncommon nonsense." Alice said nothing as she sat down again with her hands in her face, wondering if anything would ever happen in the natural way again. "I should like to have it explained," said the Mock Turtle. "She can't explain it," said the Gryphon hastily. "Go on with the next verse." "But what about his toes? How could he turn them out with his nose? You know?" "It's the first position in dancing," said Alice, but she was dreadfully puzzled by the whole thing, and longed to change the subject. "On with the next verse," the Gryphon shouted impatiently. "It begins, 'I passed by his garden.'" Alice dare not disobey, and she felt sure it would come out all wrong, and she went on in a trembling voice. "I passed by his garden, marked with one eye how the owl and panther were sharing a pie. The panther took the crust, the gravy, the meat, while the owl had the dish as its share of the treat. When the pie was all finished, the owl, as a boon, was kindly permitted to pocket the spoon, while the panther received the knife and the fork with a growl, and concluded the banquet by— "What's the use of repeating all that stuff?" the Mock Turtle interrupted, "if you don't explain it as you go on. It's by far the most confusing thing I have ever heard." "Yes, I think you'd better leave off," said the Gryphon, and Alice was only too glad to do so. "Shall we try another figure of the lobster quadrille?" the Gryphon went on, "or would you like the Mock Turtle to sing you a song?" "Oh, a song if you please. If the Mock Turtle would be so kind," Alice replied eagerly, so that the Gryphon said in a rather offended tone, "No account of the taste. Sing her turtle soup, will you, old fellow?" The Mock Turtle sighed deeply, and began in a voice sometimes choked with sobs, to sing this: "Beautiful soup, so rich and green, waiting in a hot tureen. Who for such dainties would not stoop? Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, who cares for the fish, game, or any other dish? Who would not give all else for 2 pennyworth of this beautiful soup? Pennyworth, only a beautiful of beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful, beautiful soup." "Chorus again!" cried the Gryphon, and the Mock Turtle had only just begun to repeat it when the cry of "The trial's beginning!" was heard in the distance. "Come on!" cried the Gryphon, and taking Alice by the hand, it hurried off without waiting for the end of the song. "What trial is it?" Alice panted as she ran, but the Gryphon only answered, "Come on!" and ran faster, while more and more faintly came carried on the breezes that followed them, the melancholy words: "Soup of the evening, beautiful, beautiful soup." And that is the end of the lobster's quadrille. I hope you enjoyed my not so fantastic singing, but it's part of the story, so hey. See you next time, readers. Bye!